The phone rings, piercing Emily Carter's silent Portland apartment. A stranger's voice whispers, "Your son's alive, Emily. He's got that crescent scar on his elbow." Her heart races. Nathan's been missing since 1997. Doubt and hope collide as she grips the receiver, the past roaring back to life. Emily, once a warm librarian, now a relentless private investigator, lives for the truth. Her worn locket holding Nathan's faded photo is her talisman. Each night, she traces its edges, her callous fingers mapping a mother's unyielding vow to find her son, no matter the cost. Before diving into this gripping story, please comment below with your location and hit the like button to support our content. Your engagement means the world to us. Emily Carter, at 52, was a shadow of the woman she once was, yet her resolve burned brighter than ever. In her modest Portland apartment, the walls were lined with case files, maps, and yellowed newspaper clippings, each a piece of the puzzle that was her son Nathan's disappearance. Once a beloved librarian in Eugene, Oregon, known for her warm smile and knack for recommending just the right book, Emily had traded story time for surveillance, her soft hands now calloused from years of digging through archives and chasing leads. Her brown eyes, once lively, now carried a quiet intensity, scanning every face for a hint of her lost boy. Her days as a private investigator were solitary but purposeful. She'd earned a reputation in Portland's tight-knit investigative community for cracking cold cases others deemed hopeless. Colleagues admired her meticulousness, her ability to cross-reference decades-old police reports with grainy security footage or a single eyewitness account. But they also whispered about her obsession. "Emily's chasing ghosts," they'd say, not unkindly, over coffee at the precinct. She didn't care. Every lead, every dead end was a step closer to Nathan, who vanished at 12 during a summer camp hike in 1997. The memory of his crooked grin, preserved in a locket she wore daily, fueled her. It was a simple silver oval, engraved with an N, containing a faded photo of Nathan at 10, his freckled face alight with mischief. Emily's life revolved around her work. Her apartment, a small one-bedroom on the edge of Portland's Pearl District, was more office than home. A battered desk held her laptop, stacks of legal pads, and a half-empty coffee mug. The fridge was stocked with takeout containers, and her bed was often untouched, as she preferred dozing in an armchair amid her files. She had no family left, her parents gone, her marriage dissolved in the wake of Nathan's loss. Friends had drifted away, unable to keep up with her single-minded pursuit. Yet Emily didn't feel alone. Nathan was with her in every scribbled note, every late-night drive to check a new lead. Her only indulgence was a nightly ritual, opening the locket, tracing Nathan's face, and whispering, "I'm still looking, kid." Portland's misty streets were Emily's battleground. The city's gray skies and evergreen backdrop suited her mood, somber yet alive with possibility. By day, she navigated its bustling coffee shops and quiet suburbs, blending in with her nondescript jacket and practical boots. By night, she haunted her office, a cramped space above a bookstore in the Hawthorne district. The office smelled of old paper and coffee grounds, its walls plastered with topographic maps of Oregon's rural areas and timelines of Nathan's case. A single window overlooked the Willamette River, its sluggish flow a mirror to her endless search. Emily's routine was relentless. Mornings began with emails from other investigators or tips from her network of contacts, retired cops, journalists, even amateur sleuths. She'd pore over them, cross-checking details against her database, a digital fortress of every fact she'd gathered since 1997. Afternoons were for fieldwork, visiting libraries for old records, interviewing aging witnesses, or staking out locations tied to vague leads. She mentored young investigators on the side. Not for money, but to keep her skills sharp and her network alive. They called her Miss Carter, respecting her quiet authority, though few knew the personal stakes driving her. The city itself seemed to hold its breath for her. Portland's eclectic mix of hipsters, artists, and old-timers created a backdrop where secrets could hide, but also surface unexpectedly. Emily felt it in the air, the weight of untold stories in every alley, every diner. Her favorite spot was a bench near the river, where she'd sit with a thermos of tea, watching joggers and dog walkers, wondering if Nathan was out there, grown into a man she wouldn't recognize. The thought both broke her heart and steeled her resolve. After Nathan's disappearance, Emily's life had fractured. The first years were chaos, frantic searches, media pleas, and sleepless nights. She'd quit her library job, unable to bear reading to other children while hers was gone. Becoming a private investigator was a natural shift. Her love of research turned into a weapon. She learned to tail suspects, decode legal jargon, and spot lies in a glance. But the cost was high. Friendships faded, her ex-husband remarried, and her health frayed. Migraines and insomnia were constant companions. Yet she clung to hope, fragile but unyielding, that Nathan was alive. The locket, cool against her chest, was her proof that love could outlast despair. Each night, as Portland's lights flickered on, Emily renewed her vow. She'd find him, or at least the truth, no matter how long it took. Emily Carter sat at her cluttered desk, the glow of her laptop casting shadows across the maps pinned to her office walls. It was a rainy March evening in 2023, and Portland's drizzle drummed against the window. She was scrolling through a local news site, her nightly ritual of sifting through stories for any hint of Nathan, when an article stopped her cold. The headline read, "Seattle Man's Community Center Revives Forgotten Neighborhood." The photo showed a man, mid-30s, with a familiar tilt to his head, handing out backpacks to kids. His name was James Larson, but it was his smile, Nathan's crooked, hesitant grin, that made Emily's breath catch. Her fingers trembled as she clicked the article. James ran a community center in Seattle's Rainier Valley, mentoring at-risk youth. The piece described his quiet charisma, his knack for connecting with kids, and a detail that sent a jolt through her. A crescent-shaped scar on his left elbow, mentioned in passing when he'd rolled up his sleeve during a basketball game. Emily's heart pounded. Nathan had fallen off his bike at 8, leaving that exact scar. She opened her locket, staring at the faded photo of her son, searching for confirmation in his young face. Was this possible after 26 years? She reread the article, dissecting every word. James had no listed family, no clear past before appearing in Seattle a decade ago. The vagueness gnawed at her investigator's instincts, but the scar was too specific to dismiss. Emily pulled up her database, cross-referencing missing persons reports, adoption records, anything that might link James to Nathan. Nothing surfaced, but her gut screamed this wasn't a coincidence. She grabbed her phone and dialed Sarah Mitchell, her journalist friend, whose knack for digging up buried stories had kept Emily's hope alive. "Sarah, I need you to look into someone," Emily said, her voice tight. She sent the article link, explaining the scar. Sarah, used to Emily's late-night hunches, promised to dig into James's background. Emily hung up, staring at the photo of James. His eyes, kind but guarded, mirrored Nathan's when he'd been shy as a boy. Hope surged, but doubt shadowed it. How many times had she chased ghosts, only to find strangers? She printed the article, tucking it into her worn notebook, and began planning a trip to Seattle. This lead, however fragile, was the closest she'd come in years. The next morning, Emily drove north to Seattle, the 2-hour trip a blur of nerves and anticipation. Rainier Valley was gritty but vibrant, its streets lined with murals and small shops. The community center, a converted warehouse, buzzed with activity, kids shooting hoops as volunteers sorting donations. Emily parked across the street, her investigator's cap on, blending into the crowd in her plain jacket. She watched James through the center's glass doors, her heart a tangle of hope and fear. He was taller than she'd imagined Nathan would be, lean but strong, with short dark hair and a quiet confidence as he coached a group of teens. James moved with purpose, laughing with the kids, but his eyes darted occasionally, as if scanning for threats. Emily noted it. Trauma leaves marks, and she knew them well. She spent the day observing, taking discreet photos, noting his habits. He was patient, almost paternal with the kids, yet kept adults at arm's length. At one point, he rolled up his sleeve, and there it was, the crescent scar, stark against his skin. Emily's breath hitched, her hand clutching the locket under her shirt. Back in Portland, she met Sarah at a quiet diner. Sarah slid a thin folder across the table. "James Larson's a ghost before 2013, she said. "No birth certificate, no school records. Earliest trace is a driver's license from Seattle, issued 10 years ago. He's clean, no arrests, but it's like he appeared out of nowhere." Emily frowned, flipping through the sparse documents. An adoption record mentioned a foster home in Idaho, but details were sealed. Sarah had called in favors to get more, but it would take time. Emily's mind raced. If James was Nathan, why the false identity? Fear? Amnesia? Or was he hiding something darker? She returned to Seattle the next day, posing as a volunteer to get closer. James greeted her politely but warily, his eyes lingering on her as if sensing her scrutiny. "You're new," he said, his voice neutral. Emily nodded, offering a vague story about wanting to help. She spent the day sorting supplies, watching him interact with the kids, searching for more clues. His laugh, the way he tilted his head when listening, it was Nathan, but hardened by years she couldn't fathom. That night, back in her hotel, Emily pored over her notes. The scar, the mannerisms, the missing past. It all pointed to Nathan, but doubt gnawed at her. Was she projecting hope onto a stranger? Sarah's email pinged with a new lead, a retired social worker who'd handled adoptions in Idaho during the late 90s. Emily booked a meeting, her pulse quickening. This was no longer just a hunch. It was a thread she'd pull until it unraveled or broke. She touched the locket, whispering, "I'm close, Nathan. Hold on." Before watching this thrilling tale, please share your location in the comments and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more captivating stories for you. In the summer of 1997, the air in rural Yamhill County, Oregon, was thick with the scent of pine and wildflowers. 12-year-old Nathan Carter, a wiry boy with a crooked grin and a love for soccer, was one of 50 kids at Camp Greenridge, a week-long retreat nestled in the rolling hills west of Portland. Emily Carter, then a 26-year-old librarian, had kissed him goodbye at the camp's entrance, ruffling his dark hair as he clutched his backpack, brimming with excitement. "Score a goal for me, kid," she'd said, never imagining it would be their last moment together. On the third day, during a group hike through a dense forest trail, Nathan vanished. The camp, run by a small nonprofit, had minimal oversight. Counselors were local volunteers, enthusiastic but untrained. The hike, meant to be a fun exploration of the nearby creek, turned chaotic when a sudden rainstorm scattered the group. Counselors reported head counts were muddled. Some kids wandered off to chase frogs, others lagged behind. By the time the group regrouped, Nathan was gone. His name echoed through the trees as counselors and campers searched, but the rain washed away footprints and the dense underbrush hid any clues. Emily was at the library when the call came. "Mrs. Carter, there's been an incident," the camp director stammered. She drove to Greenridge in a panic, arriving to find police tape and frantic parents. The police theorized Nathan had wandered off, perhaps fallen into the creek, but divers found nothing. Volunteers combed the forest for days, their boots sinking into muddy trails while helicopters buzzed overhead. Emily, sleepless and hollow-eyed, handed out flyers with Nathan's photo, his freckled face, that crescent scar on his elbow from a biking mishap. Rumors swirled, a lost child, a tragic accident, or something darker. One counselor, Victor Hayes, a quiet man in his 30s who led the hike, seemed oddly detached, but no one pressed him. He claimed Nathan was with the group 1 minute, gone the next. The investigation stalled quickly. The rural sheriff's department was understaffed, and the camp's lax records offered no leads. Emily's pleas on local news, tearful, raw, drew sympathy, but no answers. Some whispered about a runaway, but Nathan was a happy kid, close to his mother, with no reason to flee. Others pointed to the forest's dangers, bears, ravines, but no trace of his backpack or clothing surfaced. Emily's world crumbled. She scoured the woods herself, calling Nathan's name until her voice gave out, her hands clutching his locket, a gift from his last birthday. The police eventually scaled back, leaving her with nothing but questions and a gnawing fear that someone had taken her boy. In the years following Nathan's disappearance, Emily's life became a relentless quest for answers. She quit her library job, unable to bear the sight of children's books without thinking of Nathan's bedtime stories. She trained as a private investigator, channeling her grief into skills, tracking, interviewing, digging through public records. The first year, she worked with the police, who chased every tip, a hiker's sighting, a vague report of a boy matching Nathan's description in a nearby town. All were dead ends. Volunteers, mostly local parents, joined her, plastering Yamhill County with flyers and organizing candlelight vigils. But as months turned to years, the community's fervor faded, and Emily felt the weight of her isolation. She poured her savings into private detectives, who scoured missing persons databases and interviewed camp staff. One detective suggested human trafficking, noting Oregon's proximity to major highways, but without evidence, the theory fizzled. Emily appeared on talk shows, her voice steady but her eyes haunted, begging for information. Rewards were offered, $5,000, then $10,000, but no credible leads emerged. By 2000, the case was cold, mentioned only in anniversary articles with headlines like, "The Boy Who Vanished." Emily's marriage to Nathan's father, Tom, collapsed under the strain. He moved away, unable to cope, while she stayed, anchored to the hope of finding their son. Enter Sarah Mitchell, a tenacious journalist. Emily met in 1999 at a press conference for missing children. Sarah, in her early 30s, had a sharp mind and a knack for uncovering hidden truths. Her freckled face and quick laugh belied a dogged determination to expose injustice. She'd written about Nathan's case for a Portland paper, digging deeper than most. When Emily shared her frustration with the police's inaction, Sarah offered to help off the record. "I don't give up easy," she said, handing Emily her card. Their partnership began over coffee, with Sarah combing through old camp records and tracking down former counselors. Sarah's leads were small but vital. She found a photo of the hike group, spotting Victor Hayes lingering at the edge, his expression unreadable. She interviewed locals who recalled a strange van near the camp that summer, but the owner was never traced. Sarah's persistence gave Emily hope, even as years passed without breakthroughs. By 2005, Sarah had moved to Seattle for a bigger paper, but stayed in touch, sending Emily tips about similar cases. Their bond grew into a quiet friendship, Sarah's humor a rare light in Emily's dark days. "We'll find him," Sarah would say, squeezing Emily's hand during late-night calls. Emily's search never stopped. She built a network of contacts, cops, social workers, even amateur sleuths, following every rumor from a boy in Idaho to a sighting in California. Each dead end chipped away at her, but she clung to the locket, its weight a reminder of her promise. Sarah's articles kept Nathan's name alive, urging readers to come forward. By 2023, Emily was a seasoned investigator, her life a tapestry of leads and losses, but Sarah's unwavering support and her own stubborn hope kept her moving forward, one step at a time, toward the truth. Emily Carter returned to Seattle's Rainier Valley, her heart a battlefield of hope and skepticism. The community center hummed with life, kids darting between basketball courts and art tables, while James Larson, potentially her Nathan, moved among them with quiet authority. Emily, posing as a volunteer, carried a notebook disguised as a planner, jotting observations about James's mannerisms. His crooked smile, the way he rubbed his elbow when deep in thought, echoed Nathan so vividly she could barely breathe. But his guarded eyes and vague answers about his past kept her investigator's instincts on edge. Was he Nathan, or was she chasing another ghost? Her first step was cautious engagement. During a break, she approached James with a stack of donated books, offering a warm smile. "These could use a home," she said, watching his reaction. He nodded, his gaze flickering over her face, as if sensing her scrutiny. "Thanks, Ellen," he replied, using the alias she'd given. His voice was soft but measured, like someone who'd learned to weigh every word. Emily tested him subtly, mentioning a childhood game, Red Rover, that Nathan loved. James's eyes lit up briefly, a faint smile tugging at his lips before he changed the subject. The moment was fleeting but electric, fueling her resolve. Back in Portland, Emily met Sarah Mitchell at their usual diner, the air thick with the scent of coffee and grease. Sarah slid a folder across the table, her freckled face tense. "James's adoption records are a mess," she said. "He was placed in an Idaho foster home in '99, age 14, no prior history. The agency's defunct now, but I found a social worker who remembers a kid with a scar like Nathan's." Emily's pulse quickened. The timeline fit. Nathan would have been 14 2 years after his abduction. But why no records before? Sarah had a lead on a retired clerk who might know more, but it would take days to track her down. Emily pressed forward, returning to the community center daily. She sorted supplies, helped kids with homework, and watched James. His kindness was genuine. He fixed a girl's broken shoelace with care, coached a shy boy through a layup, but he avoided personal questions. When she asked about his childhood, he deflected with a joke about boring small-town life. Emily's hope wrestled with doubt. If he was Nathan, why hide? Fear? Shame? Or was he someone else, molded by coincidence into her son's image? She needed more than a scar and a smile. Sarah's next call brought a breakthrough. The Idaho foster home was linked to a now-deceased couple with ties to questionable adoptions. Emily requested James's fingerprints from a coffee mug he'd used, sending them to a contact at the Portland PD. No matches in criminal databases, but that didn't rule out Nathan, who'd vanished before being fingerprinted. Emily then tried a bolder move. During a quiet moment at the center, she showed James a photo from her locket, Nathan at 10, grinning on a soccer field. "Reminds me of someone," she said casually. James froze, his fingers tightening on a clipboard, but he mumbled, "Cute kid," and walked away. His reaction was a crack in his armor, but Emily needed certainty. She decided to push harder, risking his trust for the truth. Emily's volunteer shifts became a delicate dance of building rapport while probing for answers. She brought homemade cookies to the center, a recipe Nathan loved, peanut butter with extra crunch. James took one, his eyes softening as he bit into it. "Tastes like something from a long time ago," he said, almost to himself. Emily's heart leapt, but she kept her tone light. "Old family recipe," she replied, watching him closely. He nodded, his gaze distant, and she wondered if a memory had stirred. These small moments, shared glances, fleeting smiles, began to weave a fragile bond, though James remained wary. They worked side by side, organizing a fundraiser for the center's kids. Emily saw Nathan in James's small habits, the way he tapped his foot when nervous, how he hummed softly while stacking chairs. She shared stories of her nephew, a boy who loved soccer and stargazing, mirroring Nathan's passions. James listened, his expression unreadable but attentive. Once, he mentioned a faint memory of watching stars from a field, but clammed up when Emily pressed for details. "Not much to tell," he said, his voice tight. Emily sensed fear, not deception, and it broke her heart. Was he protecting himself or someone else? Sarah's research deepened the mystery. The Idaho foster home had ties to a man named Victor Hayes, a former camp counselor from Greenridge who'd vanished after 1997. Sarah found no direct link to James, but Victor's history, arrest for petty theft and a dismissed assault charge, raised red flags. Emily shared this with James during a late shift, testing his reaction. "Ever hear of a guy named Victor?" she asked, feigning casualness. James's face paled, his hands pausing mid-task. "No," he said too quickly, turning away. The lie hung between them, and Emily's hopes surged. He knew something, even if he wouldn't say it. Their bond grew through shared work. James opened up slightly, joking about the kids' antics or praising Emily's knack for organizing. She reciprocated, praising his dedication, but the unspoken question loomed. Was he Nathan? One evening, as they cleaned up after a game night, Emily noticed James staring at her locket, which had slipped from her shirt. "Nice necklace," he said softly. She opened it, showing Nathan's photo. "My nephew," she lied, watching his eyes. He looked away, his jaw tight, and muttered, "Looks happy." The moment was raw, charged with unspoken pain, and Emily felt their connection deepen, even as his walls stayed up. But tension simmered. James grew jumpy when Emily lingered too long, as if sensing her probing. She caught him glancing at exits, his hands fidgeting. Sarah warned her to be careful. Victor's past suggested danger, and if James was Nathan, he might be hiding from more than his identity. Emily's maternal instincts warred with her investigator's caution. She wanted to hug him, to promise safety, but every step closer risked pushing him away. Late at night in her hotel room, she clutched the locket, whispering, "I'm here, Nathan. I won't give up." The bond she was building with James was real, but fragile, and she knew the truth could either save them or shatter everything. This character deserves a like for their resilience, but sadly, they haven't received it yet. Show your support by hitting the like button now. Emily Carter's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel, driving through the misty backroads of rural Washington. Sarah Mitchell's latest lead had pointed to Victor Hayes, the former camp counselor from Greenridge, now living in a secluded cabin near Snohomish. It was April 2023, and the air was heavy with the scent of damp pine. Sarah's research had uncovered Victor's dark history, a string of arrests in the late 90s for theft and assault, and whispers of his involvement in a child trafficking ring that operated across state lines. Emily's heart pounded. Victor was the key to Nathan, and she was done waiting. She parked a mile from the cabin, hidden by dense evergreens, and approached on foot, her boots sinking into the muddy trail. The cabin was a weathered structure, its windows dark, a rusted pickup truck parked out front. Emily's investigator instincts kicked in. She noted the lack of security cameras, the single dirt road in and out. Tucked in her jacket was a recorder, a can of pepper spray, and Nathan's locket for courage. Sarah had wanted to come, but Emily insisted on going alone. She couldn't risk James or Nathan shutting down if this went wrong. Victor answered the door, a tall man in his 60s with a grizzled beard and cold eyes. "Who are you?" he growled, his voice rough from years of chain smoking. Emily, using her alias Ellen, claimed to be a journalist researching old camps. Victor's posture stiffened, but he let her in, perhaps out of curiosity or arrogance. The cabin smelled of mildew and stale coffee, cluttered with old furniture and stacks of yellowed newspapers. Emily's eyes scanned for clues, a child's shoe, a familiar backpack, but saw nothing obvious. She steered the conversation to Greenridge, watching Victor's reactions. "Heard about a kid who went missing there in '97, she said, her tone neutral. Victor's jaw tightened, his fingers drumming on a chipped mug. "Kids get lost," he muttered. "Nature's dangerous." Emily pressed, mentioning Nathan's name. Victor's eyes narrowed, and she caught a flicker of recognition. "Don't know no Nathan," he snapped, but his voice betrayed a tremor. Emily's pulse raced. She was close, too close. Then she took a risk. "I've been talking to James Larson in Seattle," she said, watching him like a hawk. Victor's face drained of color, his hand jerking toward a drawer. Emily's hand hovered over her pepper spray, but she kept her voice steady. "He's got a scar like one of those kids from Greenridge. Know anything about that?" Victor stood abruptly, knocking over his mug. "Get out," he snarled, but Emily saw fear in his eyes. She held her ground, demanding answers about the trafficking ring. Victor lunged, grabbing her arm, but she twisted free, spraying him with pepper spray. He staggered back, cursing, as Emily bolted for the door, her recorder capturing every word. Outside, she hid in the woods, heart hammering, and called Sarah. "He's involved," she whispered. "Get the police here." As she waited, she spotted a locked shed behind the cabin, its padlock rusted but sturdy. Her gut screamed it held secrets, but she couldn't risk breaking in, not yet. Victor's reaction confirmed he knew James, maybe Nathan, and Emily was determined to bring him down. Back in Seattle, Emily found James at the community center, coaching a late-night basketball game. His face lit up when he saw her, but it faltered as she pulled him aside, her expression grim. In a quiet corner, she told him about Victor, watching his reaction. James's hands shook, his eyes darting to the exit. "I don't know any Victor," he said, but his voice cracked, betraying him. Emily softened, touching his arm. "James, I know you're scared, but I think you're my son, Nathan. I need you to trust me." She opened her locket, showing Nathan's photo, her eyes pleading. James stared at the picture, his breath uneven. "I'm not him," he whispered, but tears welled in his eyes. Emily saw the boy he'd been, frightened, lost. She shared her own pain, her years of searching, the locket her only anchor. "If you're Nathan, I've never stopped looking for you," she said. James turned away, his shoulders hunched, grappling with memories he'd buried. He admitted fragments, a dark room, a man's voice, the scar from a fall he couldn't place. But he refused to confirm he was Nathan, fear locking his truth away. That night, Sarah called with news. The police had raided Victor's cabin, finding documents linking him to a trafficking network active in the '90s. No direct evidence tied him to Nathan, but a photo in the shed showed a boy with a crescent scar, eerily like James. Emily showed James the photo, her voice gentle but firm. "This is you, isn't it?" James's face crumpled, memories flooding back, being taken from the camp, locked in a basement, escaping years later. "I didn't want to remember," he choked out. "I thought if I stayed hidden, I'd be safe." Victor's arrest was imminent, but Sarah warned he had connections, possibly accomplices still active. Emily feared for James's safety. If he was Nathan, he was a loose end. She begged him to help her expose Victor's network, to find justice for others who might still be out there. James hesitated, torn between his life as James Larson and the boy he might have been. The center's kids, his new family, anchored him, but Emily's love, raw and unwavering, pulled at his heart. The turning point came when Victor, out on bail, sent a threatening note to the center. "Keep quiet, or you'll regret it." James found it, his hands shaking as he showed Emily. Fear turned to resolve. He couldn't let Victor hurt anyone else. "I'll help you," he said, his voice steady for the first time. Together they devised a plan. James would wear a wire, meeting Victor under police surveillance to extract a confession. It was risky. Victor was volatile, and James's trauma made him fragile, but Emily trusted his courage. As they prepared, she squeezed his hand, whispering, "You're stronger than you know, Nathan." For the first time, he didn't flinch at the name. Your subscription fuels our passion for storytelling. By joining our channel, you become part of a community that values heartfelt, thrilling narratives. Thank you for supporting our work and helping us bring more stories to life. The sterile hum of the Seattle police station filled the air as Emily Carter sat across from James Larson, her hands clasped tightly around her locket. It was late April 2023, and the DNA results from James's sample, taken discreetly from a water bottle at the community center, had just arrived. The officer, a kind-eyed woman named Detective Lopez, slid a report across the table. "It's a match," she said softly. "James is Nathan Carter, your son." Emily's breath caught, her vision blurring with tears. 26 years of searching, of dead ends and sleepless nights, culminated in this moment. She looked at James, searching his face for the boy she'd lost, now a man with haunted eyes. James, Nathan, stared at the report, his fingers trembling. "I don't know how to be him," he whispered, his voice raw. Emily reached for his hand, but he pulled back, his expression a mix of relief and fear. The confirmation shattered the walls he'd built as James Larson, forcing him to confront a past he'd buried. Emily's heart ached with joy and grief. Her son was alive, but the years stolen from them loomed like a chasm. She wanted to hold him, to erase his pain, but his guarded posture told her he wasn't ready. "I'm here, Nathan," she said gently. "We'll figure this out together." Sarah Mitchell, who joined them at the station, squeezed Emily's shoulder, her own eyes misty. "You did it, Em," she whispered. The news spread quickly, and the community center buzzed with reactions. Volunteers and kids who'd grown to love James were stunned, some tearful, others celebratory. But the revelation reopened wounds for families of other missing children from the 90s, who flooded Emily's phone with messages, hoping Nathan's return meant answers for them too. Emily felt their pain, her joy tempered by the weight of their shared loss. She vowed to help, even as she navigated her own fragile reunion. Nathan's reaction was complex. He sat quietly, processing the DNA match, his mind a tangle of fragmented memories, dark rooms, a man's harsh voice, the fear that kept him silent for years. Emily watched him, her investigator's mind noting his clenched fists, his averted gaze. She knew trauma could fracture identity, and Nathan's years as James were his shield. "You don't have to be anyone but yourself," she told him, her voice steady despite her tears. The station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows, but in that moment, Emily saw a flicker of her son's crooked grin, a spark of hope amid the chaos. Victor Hayes' arrest came swiftly after Nathan's wired meeting, where he'd unwittingly confessed to his role in the trafficking ring. The Snohomish cabin raid uncovered damning evidence, ledgers detailing payments for placements, photos of children, including one of a boy with Nathan's crescent scar. Victor, now in custody, remained defiant, his cold eyes glaring through the interrogation room's one-way glass. Emily watched from behind it, her stomach churning. This man had stolen her son, her life, and likely others. She wanted answers. Where were the other children? But Victor's silence was a wall. The police, led by Detective Lopez, built a case against Victor, linking him to at least 3 other abductions in the 90s. Nathan's testimony was crucial, though painful. He recounted vague memories of a basement, hunger, and fear, but couldn't name other victims or locations. The trafficking network, Lopez explained, was vast, with accomplices still at large. Victor faced charges of kidnapping and trafficking, but his refusal to cooperate left gaps in the case. Emily pushed for more, contacting families of missing children, sharing what she knew. Her investigator's drive wouldn't let her rest, even as Nathan begged her to stop digging, fearing retaliation. The community center became a beacon of healing. Nathan, still adjusting to his identity, continued coaching kids, his presence a quiet defiance against Victor's crimes. Volunteers organized a vigil, lighting candles for all the missing, their flames flickering in the Seattle drizzle. Emily spoke, her voice breaking as she thanked the community and vowed to keep searching for answers. Nathan stood beside her, silent but present, his hand brushing hers, a small gesture that felt monumental. The crowd's support was a lifeline, but Emily knew the fight wasn't over. Victor's network hinted at others still operating in the shadows. Victor's trial loomed, but his health deteriorated in jail. A heart condition, the doctors said. Emily felt a bitter mix of relief and frustration. If he died, more truths might be lost. Nathan, meanwhile, grappled with guilt, wondering if he could have escaped sooner, saved others. Emily reassured him, "You survived. That's enough for now." The center's kids rallied around him, their laughter a balm for his wounds. As Emily watched Nathan toss a basketball, she clutched her locket, its weight lighter now. Victor's consequences were coming, but the real victory was her son, standing tall, reclaiming his life one step at a time. The soft clink of dishes filled Emily Carter's Portland apartment as she set the table for dinner, a ritual that felt both foreign and sacred. It was May 2023, weeks after the DNA test confirmed James Larson was her son, Nathan. The apartment, once a fortress of case files and solitude, now held traces of a new life. Nathan's jacket on the couch, a pair of sneakers by the door. Emily had cooked Nathan's childhood favorite, peanut butter meatloaf, a quirky recipe they'd invented together when he was 6. The smell brought a lump to her throat, a fragile bridge to the past. Nathan sat across from her, his posture stiff, his eyes tracing the grain of the wooden table. Conversation was halting, punctuated by long silences. "This is good," he said, poking at the meatloaf, his voice polite but distant. Emily smiled, hiding her ache. She wanted to ask about his years away, to fill the 26-year gap, but his guarded expression stopped her. Instead, she shared small memories, Nathan's first soccer goal, their stargazing nights in the backyard. He listened, his crooked grin flickering, but offered little in return. Trauma, the therapist had warned, could make trust a slow climb. Their days were a delicate dance. Nathan stayed at the apartment a few nights a week, splitting time with his Seattle Community Center. Emily drove him to therapy, a 40-minute trip through Portland's misty streets where they'd sit in silence or make small talk about the weather. She noticed his habits, tapping his foot when anxious, humming softly when content, echoes of the boy she'd lost. But he was also James, shaped by years of survival, and Emily struggled to reconcile the two. One evening she found him staring at her locket, left open on the counter. "I remember you wearing that," he said quietly, a crack in his armor. Emily's heart swelled, but she didn't push, letting the moment linger. Awkward moments piled up. Nathan flinched when Emily hugged him too tightly, and she caught him checking exits, a habit from years of fear. Yet there were glimmers of connection. A shared laugh over a spilled coffee, Nathan fixing her creaky door with a toolbox from the center. Emily clung to these, her maternal instincts reawakening. She left notes on the fridge. "Proud of you, kid," hoping to ease his unease. Each small step felt like a victory, but the weight of lost years hung heavy, a reminder that love alone couldn't erase the past. Nathan wrestled with his dual identity in the quiet moments, his mind a storm of James and Nathan. Therapy sessions, held in a cozy office overlooking the Willamette River, peeled back layers of his trauma. He described flashes of his captivity, a damp basement, a locked door, the sound of trains rattling nearby. But the memories were fragmented, like a puzzle with missing pieces. "I built James to survive," he told his therapist, Dr. Ellis, a gentle woman with gray curls. "If I'm Nathan, what happens to him?" The question haunted him, his fear of losing the life he'd forged palpable. At the community center, Nathan threw himself into work, coaching kids with a fierce dedication that masked his inner turmoil. The kids adored him, unaware of his past, and their trust grounded him. But Emily's presence, her unwavering belief that he was her son, stirred guilt and confusion. He'd catch her watching him, her eyes full of love and pain, and feel a pang of responsibility. Was he betraying James by embracing Nathan? Late at night, he'd lie awake in Emily's guest room, staring at the ceiling, haunted by a memory of a man's voice, Victor's, ordering him to forget his name. Emily's support was a lifeline. She attended therapy with him once, sitting quietly as he spoke of his fear of being found again. You're not just Nathan or James, she said after, her voice steady. You're both, and I love all of you. Her words chipped away at his defenses, but doubt lingered. He avoided mirrors, afraid to see a stranger in his reflection. One day, a kid at the center called him Coach Nathan, a slip from Emily's stories, and he froze, the name both foreign and familiar. He didn't correct the kid, a small concession to his past. A turning point came during a therapy exercise. Dr. Ellis asked Nathan to write a letter to his younger self. He wrote to Nathan Carter, describing the stars they'd watched with Emily, the soccer games, the safety of her arms. Tears fell as he wrote, and when he shared it with Emily, she cried too, pulling him into a hug he didn't resist. I'm trying, he whispered, and she nodded, her locket pressed between them. The struggle wasn't over, but Nathan began to see a path forward, one where he could carry both identities, guided by Emily's quiet strength and the promise of a new beginning. In the soft June light of 2023, Emily Carter and Nathan stood side by side in Portland's Washington Park, the air fragrant with roses from the nearby garden. The park was quiet, save for the hum of distant joggers and the rustle of leaves. Emily held her locket, its silver surface warm from her touch, and opened it to show Nathan the faded photo of him at 10, his crooked grin frozen in time. This was you before everything, she said softly, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. Nathan's eyes lingered on the image, his expression a mix of recognition and sorrow. For weeks, their relationship had teetered between hope and hesitation. Nathan, still navigating the dual identities of James Larson and Nathan Carter, had begun spending more time at Emily's apartment, their evenings filled with tentative steps toward connection. Today, they'd chosen the park for its neutrality. No walls, no expectations. Emily shared a story of Nathan's 5th birthday when he'd smeared cake on her nose, laughing until he hiccuped. Nathan chuckled, a rare sound, and countered with a vague memory of a birthday with candles in a dark place, perhaps during his captivity. The shared vulnerability felt like a bridge, fragile but real. They sat on a bench, the city sprawling below, and Nathan spoke haltingly about his years as James, odd jobs, lonely nights, the community center as his anchor. Emily listened, her investigator's instinct quieted, her mother's heart wide open. I kept moving, scared someone would find me, he admitted, his fingers tracing the crescent scar on his elbow. Emily nodded, her hand resting near his, not touching but close. You're here now, she said. That's what matters. Nathan met her gaze, his eyes softer, and for the first time he reached for her hand, his grip tentative but warm. The moment wasn't a full resolution, but it was a promise, a step toward healing. Their laughter came easier as they walked through the park, swapping stories of Portland's quirks and Nathan's kids at the center. Emily felt the weight of 26 years lighten, not gone but bearable. Nathan, too, seemed less guarded. His shoulders relaxed. They paused by a fountain, its spray catching the sunlight, and Emily saw a flicker of the boy she'd lost in his smile. The locket still around her neck felt less like a tether to the past and more like a symbol of their present. Imperfect, but theirs. The following week, Nathan proposed a project at the Rainier Valley Community Center, a small garden to honor resilience, a place for the kids to grow something of their own. Emily joined him on a sunny Saturday, her hands in the soil alongside his as they planted a young cedar tree. The kids from the center helped, their chatter filling the air, while volunteers, including Sarah Mitchell, brought seedlings and tools. The cedar, Nathan explained, was for strength. It would outlast them all. Emily watched him guide a boy's hands to pat the dirt, her heart swelling with pride and a quiet hope. The garden became a symbol of renewal. Nathan, still grappling with his identity, found purpose in the act of planting, each root a defiance of his lost years. Emily, too, saw it as a new chapter. She'd spent decades chasing answers, her life defined by loss, but here, with dirt under her nails and Nathan beside her, she felt grounded. Sarah, snapping photos for a local paper, caught Emily's eye and grinned. "This is what you fought for," she said, her voice low. Emily nodded, her locket glinting in the sun, a quiet testament to her journey. As the kids ran off to play, Nathan and Emily sat by the cedar, its branches barely reaching their knees. He spoke of his fears, returning memories, the threat of Victor's accomplices, the weight of being Nathan again. Emily listened, her hand on the locket, and shared her own fear that she'd fail him again. We're both learning, she said. Nathan nodded, his gaze on the tree. Maybe we'll grow with it, he said, a hint of his old mischief in his voice. The words carried a fragile optimism, a shared commitment to face the future, scars and all. The story closed as they stood, the cedar shadow stretching across the garden. Emily tucked the locket under her shirt, its weight a reminder of love's endurance. Nathan, his hands still dusted with soil, looked at her with a tentative smile, the city's hum a backdrop to their quiet hope. They walked back to the center, side by side, the path ahead uncertain, but theirs to forge. Somewhere in the rustle of new leaves, a whisper lingered. We're still here, and that's enough for now. Please subscribe to support our team, share this video with friends and family, hit the like button, and comment your thoughts below. Would you like a part 2? Let us know.